Before the first rune was carved, before the god shaped Midgard, there was a force that could twist fate itself. It was forbidden to most. Feared by warriors, and yet desired by kings and gods alike. They called it Seidr, which literally means chord, string, or snare. This name hints at what its practitioners sought to do: discern the threads of fate and weave new events into being. In the Viking age, Seidr was not a simple parlor trick. It was considered one of the most powerful forms of magic and shamanism. Those skilled in it tried to understand the course of destiny, and then symbolically twist those threads so that illness could be healed, storms calmed, battles won, or enemies cursed. Seidr was defined by two core ideas: discerning fate and reshaping it. To perform Seidr, a practitioner would often carry a distaff, a woman's spinning tool, and sit on a high wooden platform or a special seat. They would enter an ecstatic trance to interact with spirits and the hidden world. Achieving this altered consciousness required chanting, drumming, or sometimes psychoactive substances. During the trance, they might call upon gods, the dead, or other spirits for guidance. From this state, they could have performed divination, uncover secrets, heal the sick, bring good luck, call animals for hunting or fish, control the weather, or cast curses that blighted land or brought illness. Archaeologist Neil Price summarizes Seidr's uses: rituals for divination and clairvoyance, locating hidden things, healing, bringing good luck, controlling weather, calling game animals and fish, and also the opposite: cursing individuals or enterprises, blighting land, inducing illness or misfortune, and guiding people to disaster. Because Seidr worked by weaving fate, the practitioner needed the courage to interact with forces that lay beyond human control and return with knowledge that could change lives. Central to Norse cosmology were the Norns, three mysterious beings named Urd, what has been, Verdandi, what is becoming, and Skuld, what shall be. The Norns lived beside Yggdrasil at the world tree and wove the fate of all beings. Their weaving imagery links directly to Seidr. Since the Norns spun and wove destiny, Seidr workers imitated this weaving to influence fate. Because of this connection, the Norns were considered among the foremost masters of Seidr. In fact, the word Norn could even be used generically for a sorceress or witch. Through Seidr, mortal practitioners attempted, in a small way, to emulate the Norns' cosmic weaving, binding or loosening the threads of weird destiny to alter outcomes. Seidr was primarily women's magic. Female practitioners were called völur, singular vulva, or seidkonur, meaning prophecy woman or magic woman. These women sometimes traveled from settlement to settlement, performing Seidr in exchange for food, lodging, and other payment. Though they were highly sought after, their role came with ambivalence. They were revered for their power, yet also feared and sometimes reviled. Accounts like the saga of Eric the Red and poems such as Völuspá describe Völur sitting on high platforms, surrounded by assistants who sang chants to help them enter trance. Their predictions could determine the outcome of voyages, battles, or harvests, and they were sometimes consulted as mediators in disputes. Although both genders could practice Seidr, men who engaged in it faced social stigma. Norse society valued rigid gender roles, and Seidr was regarded as a feminine art. A man who took up Seidr risked being labeled Arga, meaning unmanly or effeminate. Sources like Ynglinga Saga note that Seidr was considered so filled with ergi, unmanliness, that respectable men thought it shameful. To be called Argar suggested a man might surrender control of his body to spirits and thus play a passive female role during rituals. Nonetheless, some men, sometimes called sidemen, practiced Seidr. A few even pursued it professionally. Engaging in such magic could harm a man's reputation or marriage prospects, but the promise of power sometimes outweighed the risk. Performing Seidr required special tools and setups. The most iconic item was the distaff, a spindle or staff used for spinning wool, symbolizing the weaving of fate. Practitioners often sat on a wooden platform or a raised seat while entering the trance. Assistants would sing chants called Vardlokker to help the Seid worker reach an altered state of consciousness. In some rituals, the practitioner worked under the cloak, withdrawing into solitude and meditating while covered with a hood or blanket. This technique allowed the soul or consciousness to journey outward. Some sagas describe huge yawns marking the soul's departure and return. Another aspect of Seidr was Gander Reed, riding the Gand, where the practitioner projected their spirit into an animal such as a whale, walrus, or cat. The practitioner's physical body remained behind, but harming the animal manifestation could injure or kill the Seid worker. These techniques reveal how deeply Seidr was rooted in shamanic practices, emphasizing spirit journeys and animal allies. Within myth, the goddess Freyja is the archetype of the Seidr practitioner. Snorri Sturluson writes that Seidr originated among the Vanir, and that Freyja introduced it to the Aesir when she joined them. She was called Blotgidja, a priestess of sacrifices, and taught Seidr to the gods. Freyja is associated with love, fertility, war, and death, but she is also the prototypical Völva, a goddess who travels between worlds and controls destiny. Because Freyja embodied the feminine ideal of Seidr, mortal women who practiced this magic often invoked her as their patron and model. In sagas, Freyja's falcon cloak allows her to shapeshift into a bird, illustrating the idea of spiritual flight inherent in Seidr. Her mastery of weaving and fate underscores why the practice was so closely tied to women's domestic roles and textile work. Despite the stigma attached to male practitioners, the Norse god Odin is renowned as a master of Seidr. Odin is often portrayed as the god of war, wisdom, and poetry, but he also pursued esoteric knowledge at any cost. In the Ynglinga saga, Snorri notes that Odin had the skill of Seidr, which allowed him to know men's destinies, predict future events, take away health or power from some, and give it to others. Performing this magic, however, was considered unmanly, even for a god. The poetic Edda's poem Lokasenna records Loki taunting Odin for practicing Seidr, accusing him of ergi, unmanliness. Yet Odin valued knowledge over social norms. He sacrificed an eye for wisdom, hung himself on Yggdrasil to gain the runes, and willingly embraced Seidr despite the shame it carried. According to Snorri, it was Freyja who taught Seidr to Odin, indicating both her role as teacher and the Allfather's willingness to learn a feminine art. Odin's example illustrates the paradox. Seidr was labeled unmanly, yet the most powerful male deity practiced it because of its immense power. For Odin, accessing fate and altering reality was worth enduring insults. His mastery legitimized Seidr to some extent and provided a divine precedent for male practitioners who followed in his footsteps. Seidr flourished in the pre-Christian era, but after the Christianization of Scandinavia, its practice declined. Christian writers often portrayed Seidr as witchcraft or sorcery, demoting pagan gods to devils and casting practitioners in a negative light. Over time, the line between Seidr and other forms of magic blurred, and much of the knowledge was lost or suppressed. Nevertheless, traces of Seidr survived in folklore and sagas. In recent decades, modern neopagan groups have attempted to reconstruct Seidr as a spiritual practice, often focusing on oracular trance and altered states of consciousness. These revivals show the enduring fascination with Norse magic and its gendered dynamics. Seidr stands at the crossroads of magic, fate, and gender in Norse mythology. It was a powerful form of magic centered on reading and rewriting the threads of destiny. Its practitioners, primarily women but including men like Odin, used distaffs, chants, and trance states to interact with unseen realms and bring about change in the world. Seidr could heal, protect, curse, and control weather. He could find secrets and manipulate luck. The Norns were its supreme exemplars, weaving fate itself, while Freyja taught the craft to the gods and embodied its feminine ideal. Odin's adoption of Seidr illustrates the tension between societal expectations and the pursuit of knowledge. Understanding Seidr sheds light on how the Norse viewed magic, gender roles, and destiny. It reveals a culture in which women could wield immense spiritual authority, and in which even the mightiest god would break gender norms to grasp the secrets of